Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Just wanted to take some time and introduce you to our Chief of Police, Dan Hostens. As he's been here right around 2 years, I believe, give or take. But I think it was a good time to be able to just introduce him to the community and get some time to get to understand who he is as a person, not just as the Chief of Police. So before we get started, I just want to put it out there again that I'm happy to be the moderator on our podcast through the city. But at the same time, I'm happy if there's anybody else that's out there that's interested in the community that would like to participate in something like this. Certainly give us a call at the city or Joe at the WRCM and just have a conversation and see if it's something that we'd want to work towards. In the meantime, I'm happy to do it. But at the same time, we're a community, and I think it's important to get as many voices involved as possible. So, all right, that being said, Chief, I appreciate you meeting with me here.
Pleasure.
Yeah. I guess if we could just start out and let us know, like, who you are, your family, like all the important stuff is why we do our jobs and why we show up every day to do what we do.
Okay. Well, I'm Dan Hostens. I am married, and we have 5 children. We had 2 adult children who are up and out of the house and out of college and on their own. And we have 2 that are currently students at UW Stevens Point, doing different things there. And then we have a freshman who is this year. She is dividing her studies between homeschool, and she's taking a couple of classes at PJ's in Stevens Point.
Okay.
What else would you like to know?
Well, I guess I know that you, again, this just so everybody knows, you had moved when you were first moving here, there was a transition time. And you looked at moving into Wisconsin Rapids, and ultimately, as you're saying, you ended up in Stevens Point. Could you kind of share how that transpired and your thoughts on, how that does that affect your ability to be the Chief of Police in one city while living in another?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So prior to coming to Wisconsin Rapids, I spent about 26 and a half years as a police officer in Galesburg, Illinois. It's in West Central Illinois, and I left there as a deputy chief to come up to Wisconsin Rapids to take the job up here. My wife's family is from Wisconsin, and she obviously was born and raised in Wisconsin originally in near Milwaukee, but that we have property up. Our family has property in Coloma and in Hancock. So the location was perfect for us. When I got the job in May of 2023, I moved up here and moved into the cabin that my in-laws owned in Hancock. And then during that time, our son was going to be a senior in high school that fall. So my wife and the family stayed back in Illinois so that he could finish high school. Then we had, we'd looked diligently for houses in Wisconsin Rapids. We considered building. We did, several, whatever our options were out there. And ultimately we did put an offer in on a house in Wisconsin Rapids. And, as we're going through the process, to purchase that house, we were 2 weeks out from the closing date on that, and the appraisal came back substantially lower than what the contract price was, and we and the sellers couldn't come to an agreement on what that should be, so we had to back out of that. And then at that point, it was kind of crunch time. We were selling our house in Illinois, and we needed a house here. And we were able to quickly find a house and get an offer in so that we weren't homeless for too long It just happened to be that that house was in Stevens Point. You know, we tried to get a house here. It just didn't work out. And again, timing kind of put us in that position. But I don't believe that that us living in Stevens Point takes anything away from my commitment and to the community of Wisconsin Rapids. And I don't feel any different living in Stevens Point toward my job than I did living in Galesburg towards the job there. I'm very passionate about what I do. And, my ultimate goal is to serve the citizens of Wisconsin Rapids and to serve the employees of the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department. I consider myself a servant leader, and with that, I want to make the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department a great place to work for the employees there, because if people enjoy their job and they want to come to work, then that's going to be reflected in the services that they provide to the community. We're embracing technology and moving forward with improvements to the police department, updating all of our policies, and ultimately, once our policies are updated, I would like to get those posted online so that anyone who's interested can go on there on our website and see the policies of the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department. That's just another step, in that process to build that confidence in the police department for the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it is interesting. So I've been here 20 years, just talking about the housing and all that. And I was just talking with some folks the other day about, right after I got in office, we had to do the reassess the properties and kind of get them up to where they needed to be. And it's funny because we all kind of knew something was going on over COVID years, and then everything after that, the markets were just crazy. And I remember my neighbor saying to me, he wanted to sell his house, but he wouldn't accept the price that was there 20 years ago. And he's like, if this house was in Chicago, it would be worth this much. And I would always say, but it's not in Chicago, and it's never going to be like Chicago.
Right.
And I realize this is relative now because the houses in Chicago also went up as we were going up. But the fact that what he was looking to get for that house now, 20 years later, is what the houses in that neighborhood or whatever are appraising for. So who would have guessed that, it's Wisconsin Rapids, as tricky as it is here, that the houses would be going for what they're going for now, and what that means to the overall community.
Right. And it was a challenge, to find a house, obviously, that we wanted to be in. And, this is where we want to be for the rest of our lives in this area, very committed to that. And, finding a house that, again, we wanted to live in, for a long term, within the right price range and, in location and things like that, was challenging. And, we thought we found the right house. We loved the house. It just wasn't to be because of we just could come together.
So what was it like moving from Illinois? And again, we welcome you. We love folks from Illinois. So thank you for joining us in Wisconsin. I'm sure it's an adjustment for you also. But we appreciate you coming up here. What was it like working at that, for 26 years, you have, the relationships that are built, assuming you grew up then from a kind of a young man into, being in the position to be chief of police, but then transitioning from that to all of a sudden an entirely new department, not knowing anybody. How does that transition go? How's it been over the last 2 years? And yeah.
So it's definitely a leap of faith. Going from the organization that I was at to the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, it was A lot of thoughtful, prayer went into that, and consideration, and the timing was right. Of course, the location, like I said earlier, is right for us. And I grew up close to where I was a police officer in Galesburg, about half an hour away from there. I went to the Army right after high school, spent 5 years in the Army, and then I was hired there in 1996. And this really was all I knew at that point. I'd spent more than half of my life as a police officer in Galesburg, Illinois. And again, I worked my way up. I got my associate's degree, my bachelor's degree, and ultimately now I have a master's degree in public safety. And but that transition, it was scary. It was the unknown, and not knowing what I was getting myself into. Cultures can be different and challenging. Thankfully, I knew more than most, because they had, the city of Wisconsin Rapids had done an organizational study for the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department. They had an outside company come in and conduct the study, and that was provided to me at one point in the process, so that I could read through that, and it gave me a great deal of insight into what I could expect coming to Wisconsin Rapids. So that helped quite a bit. Also, their reciprocity for police officers from out of state to come to Wisconsin, there's a requirement that you have to take a test to be certified as a law enforcement officer in the state of Wisconsin. So not knowing what that was going to entail was another stressful thing. And then when I reached out to the Training and Standards Board through the DOJ, I was hoping that they would provide a study guide to help you prepare for the exam. No, they gave me the entire curriculum for the basic law enforcement class for Wisconsin law enforcement. So that was my study guide.
Okay.
So I had to, go through that. And, there are a lot of similarities in Wisconsin versus or to Illinois. So a lot of it is terminology and some minor adjustments that you have to kind of make to get up to speed with what's required in Wisconsin versus Illinois. But it's very similar.
Okay.
So, I took that test after being here for just a couple of months and passed it very, had a pretty high score on that. So that went well. And so I can move on from that and continue to, work towards, improving the police department and making it a good place to work, like I said earlier. So,
yeah, just want to back up a quick second and say thank you for your time in the military of the service. Can you elaborate a little bit what branch you were in? Just letting the folks know, what role you played there?
Yeah, certainly. I spent 5 years in the United States Army. I was military police in the Army. My first duty station after basic training was in Camp Pelham in South Korea, which, to date myself here, that post no longer exists.
Okay.
In fact, I looked it up on Google Maps recently, and it's gone. It's trees and it's stuff like that from the satellite view. But anyway, I spent 13 months there on my way back to the United States. I went to K-9 school at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. And then I finished out my last 3.5 years as a 2.5 years, 3.5 years. Anyway, as a K-9 handler at Fort Belvoir in Virginia, which is about 10 miles from Washington, D.C.
Okay. So you went into law enforcement pretty much right out of high school. It's been your passion, your focus.
Yep.
That's nice. Nice to have the focus, right? And say I had that quite so early on. So
Yeah, that's what I've always wanted to do.
yeah, that's good. So you left Illinois, took the leap of faith, came here. Your family's here, going to school, becoming a part of the community. What are some of the challenges that you felt like stand out as trying to make that transition? And again, change is constant, right? So you're going to face new challenges every day. But
yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me was not trying to do too much too fast, And soon after I started in Wisconsin Rapids, I appointed Scott DeWitt as the deputy chief, and we worked very well together in our positions. And I bounce things off of him, and he bounces things off of me, and we tend to kind of keep each other kind of grounded in that regard. The worst thing you can do is come in and just try to make a bunch of broad sweeping changes, and that really upsets the apple cart, and so I had to kind of balance what needed to be done versus that change takes time to adapt to and things like that. So we didn't make a lot of broad changes other than we focused on what was necessary at the time.
mm-hmm.
So I guess that would probably be the biggest challenge that I faced. I will tell you, law enforcement in Wisconsin seems to me to be much more supported than it was in Illinois.
Okay.
And there was a lot of legislation passed in recent years and prior to me leaving Illinois that kind of hampered law enforcement to a certain degree. So coming north to Wisconsin, it was kind of refreshing to see that there's more support, there's more backing of the things that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like I heard as I was getting into the mayor's office, like people wanted to know that the mayor was in his office, like they knew where to go and find the mayor. And in the 2025, 20 years in business, I never had an office. Like my truck was my office, or my vehicle was my office. You have their phones, I have fax machines in the truck. Like I was able to do everything from there. And then I was able to visit the different people and be out in the community. And I kind of said the same thing to folks now, like I'm not a mayor that's just going to sit in the office and wait for something to happen or wait for somebody to have a question. I got 2 phones on me. I got computers. I have the ability to be anywhere, anytime. So it's not the same as, just everybody being kind of locked in that same area. And I think that was my bigger, desire to show the perspective. And you and I have talked quite a bit about the new technologies that you guys are bringing on board, right? Trying to work the kinks out. If you want to touch on those a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm in the same boat as you. I have 2 phones and I have a computer that I take with me everywhere I go. And so I'm very accessible,
right?
In that regard. Now, we were embracing a lot of technology with the body-worn camera systems, the in-car camera systems, as well as last year implemented the flock camera systems, which are posted at pretty much all of the entrances and exits of the city. One of the things that had come up with the flock cameras was privacy as a question, and ultimately the thing with the flock cameras is we don't have access to the information or the photographs on the flock camera unless we're specifically looking for something. We can't just randomly look and see who's driving to and from, work or to and from Wisconsin Rapids or what have you. We have to have something specific that we're looking for before we have access to those things, and then we would go onto that platform. We would make our search, and then the results that we would get would only be results specific to the search that we made. So in that regard, it's probably one of the most private conscious platforms that you can have, as opposed to just a basic surveillance type cameras, and because that's not what they are. Ultimately, there are cameras everywhere. There's cameras in private businesses. There's cameras on the highways. There's cameras at intersections, things like that. But again, we don't look at those things or just randomly peruse the footage. We don't have time for that. We're busy enough, out taking calls and interacting with the community and things like that we just don't have time to do that anyway. But that technology is still there for us to do our job better, and ultimately that's what is important with that technology, is that it gives us a tool, and that's all it is. It's a tool to assist our investigations. If we have an amber alert or a silver alert or something of that nature, and we put information into the system looking for a specific vehicle, whether it's a license plate or just a description or whatever, then we can in real time kind of get an idea if that vehicle left town, or if someone from a neighboring agency is looking for a suspect in a robbery or something like that, and they put an alert into the system, searching for this vehicle, then we would get alert for if that vehicle came into Wisconsin Rapids. And ultimately I think that's important, that we can keep the community safe and in stopping those individuals if they do happen to come to this community from other jurisdictions. So, and in having that, it gives us access to literally, hundreds, if not thousands of other cameras, so that if we're looking for someone or something, if they go further out besides just the neighboring communities, we're still in a position to where they can be identified and hopefully, either found if it's a missing person or something like that, or captured or taken into custody.
Has there been some? This is for folks that don't know, the flat cameras are, like you said, are cameras on the entrances to all the city, at least the main road area, main arteries. And it was something that I think we voted on right after I became mayor. So it was in when I was at council, and certainly I have my questions about, where it's going to go and what it's going to do. But at the same time, the council voted and they're in place. And can you share any successes with us at this point, since it's been about 2 years?
Yeah. Well, so specifically, we had an individual who had made a threat to a local county official. I don't get too deep in the woods with it, but he had made a threat to one of our county officials, and a serious enough threat that we needed to find this individual, and the information was placed, or the search was put into Flock, and the individual had left the city of Wisconsin Rapids, and was ultimately found in a neighboring jurisdiction due to passing a Flock camera, and they were able to apprehend him and take that individual into custody. So that's one example. So I mean. And sometimes we put information in there, and then we find people other ways too. It's just, again, I guess, just a tool. It's just one more piece in that puzzle to help with our investigations.
Okay. So yeah, speaking of technology, like obviously everything, no matter what it is, can be used for good, can be used for, evil or bad purposes or bad intent. Um, as we said before, we both have, two phones. Sometimes that's not even enough, but it's more than enough, in most cases.
Right.
But that puts you at this new technology puts us at the mercy of social media. Social media is something that can be great for, my intent is for communication purposes, to use every aspect of communication that we can, or technology, to get as much information out to the community so they feel a part of what's going on with the government, within the government. But we do struggle with, then you have everybody has the right to say whatever they want. And it seems like people will say more negative things, mean things, I guess, whatever you want to say, over the internet, or, when they're not face to face with an individual. So yeah, we have to kind of, temper that battle with, at the same time, using it for the good stuff of being able to communicate effectively. How do you feel like that plays into your role, but as the police department itself, and working with the community?
Well, personally, I think the good far outweighs the bad in those things, and getting that information out. You'll find there are negative comments on there. Most of the time, the individuals that are posting negative comments, you can see right away that they really don't have any idea what they're talking about. So you let those things go. But the vast majority of the comments are positive and, supportive of the things that we're trying to do to make this a safer place, make this a better place for people to live. The police department is just one facet of that. We can't do everything. We need the community support. We need the community's help in maintaining, and providing information, and in supporting the things that we do, so that we can provide the services that are expected of us from the community. So ultimately, I think social media overall is very positive. And currently we have a Facebook page, but we've talked about expanding into other platforms. There are other agencies that have, Instagram, just whatever, things like that. So, the more people we can reach, the more information that we can get out there, the more transparent that we can become, and give the community the information that they need to understand what it is that we do on a regular basis. I think the better we'll all be in the long run. So that, to me, makes it well worth the negative,
Right.
Right. That sometimes comes with that. So
Right. So a lot of things are happening right now. I'm not going to go into too much with, Trump's big, beautiful bill, or the bill that's there. But, ultimately it seems we're making some moves to try to bring industry back to America. The unfortunate part is we've lost a ton of industry in America, for decades now. And so I don't know how easy it's going to be to turn around, but I think we're all, looking towards those ends. Part of me as being mayor is encouraging and setting up programs that can try to help entrepreneurs, people get more courageous, taking the risk to build, businesses and their future. But at the same time, obviously we're dealing with, having to see the mill transition from what it was as one big mill to more of an industrial park now, or a manufacturing park. Seeing the craft mill come down, just reiterating for everybody out there that craft mill, the boiler systems that were in it when they were shut down, they were never going to be able to fire up again. So the fact that we have MRD out there doing a great job taking them down methodically, knowing that in order to make their money back, they have to recoup everything they can out of those materials, which is great for us, because then it's all gone. And as sad as it is that it's going away, the reality is it was never going to come back online, and we needed to make it go away in order to bring in something new and move to the future.
Right.
But you've shared with me some of the same challenges that your community faced for where you came from, and I don't know if you're willing to share a little bit of some of the similarities that you see between what was going on there, what's happening here, how that impacts the community.
Yeah. Back in Illinois and Galesburg specifically, we did have a similar situation there where there was a Maytag refrigerator plant in Galesburg that ultimately they closed, and those jobs were moved to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And
how many jobs was that roughly?
1,600 jobs were lost. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, and that doesn't really include, the little supporting business, the pallet business set out, these other businesses that provide supplies and services and resources to that plant. I mean, you don't just look at it as, Maytag closed. No, just the people that work at Maytag are affected.
Right.
That's not the case, So they had to, pivot. They had to transition. They lost a great deal of tax revenue that was provided by that business. Not only income tax and things like that, but the property taxes.
Right.
Those were almost immediately petitioned to be cut. By the owners of the property. So then what do you do? So they established an economic development, department. We had an economic development director that had come in or was hired to help that transition. The city had purchased some land, some farmland, to turn into an industrial park, but not unlike Wisconsin Rapids. It had to be out for the right location. It was outside of the city limits, so they had to annex that into the city for it to be again part of the city. So they did that, but they also used portions of the Maytag facility and another location where they were able to, with partnerships with businesses and the city to and possibly grants, things like that, to establish incubators for small businesses. And what that entailed there was they would provide space in these locations, these facilities, for a small business to start up. Low rent, so they don't have to go out and find real estate, don't have to lease a more expensive property or business location, things like that. And they can come in, start their business up, grow their business in the incubator before moving out to another location in the community or building a manufacturing facility, depending on what they were doing specifically. They had, and hopefully I'm right in this, but a business called Intellihot, which they produce tankless water heaters, and they got their startup in the incubator and started their manufacturing and building those to be shipped all over the world. Just as an example. And then another example was a small microbrewery that family owned that was able to come into this space, into one of the spaces, and start up their business before becoming successful and moving out of that location. I think it seemed to me that it was pretty successful in establishing some of these businesses who either wouldn't have had that opportunity otherwise, or would have done it elsewhere where they were given that opportunity. Right. So having those incubators, those small business incubators, or an incubator location, It seemed to me that it was very, very successful. Not every business that came in there worked out. I mean, you're not going to.
Right.
It's not going to. But ultimately, there were some successes there that made it worth the investment, from the community and other donations, businesses, whatever. So.
Yeah, they say 9 out of 10 businesses fail, so you got to start 10 businesses to be successful.
Sure.
Not always the case, but anyways, I see Wisconsin Rapids, I appreciate the insight and to know, I think it's important for everybody, in Wisconsin Rapids and anywhere else to know that this is happening everywhere. And it depends on how you want to participate in the future as to how you, respond to what's happening. And again, social media is what it is. Sometimes it can be louder than you want it to be. I know there's a lot of people that will say this is a dying community, but it's not. And I see all these people moving in and families moving in and people starting businesses, food businesses, like using our strengths that we have here because we're very agriculture, and driven. And so I give the credit to the people who are working to the future.
Mm-hmm.
For those who aren't, happy about where we are, we all understand that. But it really comes down to what you do every day when you wake up as to where we're going to end up in the future. We keep living in the past. It's not going to be pretty. So I am glad that the community has given me the opportunity to be a part of the conversation, to help with the mill transition, to start, in my head, I know we have to start a broader entrepreneurial ecosystem that the county's working on. We had the Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Conference here a few months ago. It brought people from all around Wisconsin and the Midwest to talk about what's going on here and help each other out. So a lot of programs are in place. You see where the future has to go, and I appreciate being able to be a part of it. So in that side of that negative side of things, and again, I don't want to harp on this, but I think it's important for us to just touch on it a little bit. I see a lot of these videos out there that kind of target Wisconsin Rapids, well, any community in Wisconsin. I don't know if maybe they're from a different state and they don't like Wisconsin. I don't know for sure why they're so negative on Wisconsin, but I see them and other people in the community see them. And part of that would be, the poverty, the crime, and the drugs.
Right.
And I don't see it. I mean, I know people are doing stuff in their houses. Like, they've been doing it since the beginning of time, I would assume. Like, we can't necessarily control that. But how impactful are those things in Wisconsin Rapids that you see from your perspective as the head of the people who are trying to monitor it and curb this whole thing?
Well, as you alluded to, it's everywhere, and we're not going to. Ultimately, the police department's not going to solve all of those problems. It's a broader community effort that needs to be done, needs to be undertaken to solve those social problems. But yeah, there are. We do have drug-related crimes, and there is a small homeless population within the city of Wisconsin Rapids. But I'll tell you, there are other communities, surrounding communities, that have it far worse than we do. We have a tremendous community here in Wisconsin Rapids. Just absolute great community. And we have a lot of resources, not just city resources, but, we are the county seat of Wood County. So that we have county resources, and we have, all of these, opportunities to help those individuals that, maybe find themselves in a situation where, they're homeless or they have, substance use, issues, and, obviously we do what we can to combat these things from a law enforcement perspective. But we really need to broaden our reach and broaden our scope in involving the community in helping with those situations. And, one of the ways we've done that here in Wisconsin Rapids is that we have partnered with the Wood County Sheriff's Department and ODC to create a co-responder And what that is ODC has hired an individual that social work down that path, right? That works directly with us at the police department and also the sheriff's department in responding to situations or calls for service that we would get that would involve, substance abuse, homelessness, mental health crises, things like that. And, the police department is very limited in what we can do in those situations. We have, we can, if a crime is committed, we can make an arrest, but is that always the answer? My answer to that is no. It's not always the answer,
Right.
Because all we're doing is perpetuating a problem. Yes, maybe someone committed a crime. Yes, we can arrest them for that crime, but is that breaking that cycle? And sometimes the answer to that is no. So we need to maybe connect that individual with the resources that are available within the community that we already have available within this community, because there are a lot of resources that are already here.
Right.
Again, within the county, within the city, things like that. But it's hard sometimes it's hard for individuals, and sometimes initially they're not willing
Right.
to get that help. So in those cases, we will bring in the co-responder, and that's that missing link. To me, that's that missing link between law enforcement and these resources. We can hand someone a flyer, we can hand someone a business card, and encourage them to reach out to resources. But that's pretty much where it ends with us. I mean, we don't have the time or the resources to follow up on these things and make sure that they're getting the help that they need. That's where the co-responder comes in. The co-responder comes in, and they not only connect that individual to the resources, but they connect the resources to that individual. Recently we had a complaint from a local business owner of a homeless individual that had been kind of frequenting his establishment.
Yeah.
And it became very frustrating with them, using the facilities and, scaring customers off, that kind of thing. And we were able to get the co-responder involved. And this was after several attempts. So it's not like, okay, the first time the co-responder comes out and talks to this individual and they say, I don't want help,
Right.
that we're not going to try again, right? So she came in. And finally, and I think this was probably the third or fourth attempt that she's made in the last, 6 months or so. And she was able to convince this individual to take her up on her offer to get him shelter. And she gave him a ride to that facility. And he is now will he come back? Possibly. But at this moment, he is the beneficiary of, resources that are available
Right.
to people in that situation, and no longer in that revolving door of law enforcement where, we come out and we cite the individual for trespassing, and then the next day he's back for trespassing, and then the next week he's back in there and he's cited for trespassing. And what are we solving?
Right.
Nothing. We're we may get him out for a day, we may get him out for a week, but eventually he's going to be back. So, law enforcement isn't always, or putting someone within the criminal justice system isn't always the answer.
Right.
And it shouldn't always be the answer, especially when there's underlying causes that we can address, and we have the resources to address those things. The things that they're doing that are breaking the law, oftentimes it's just a symptom of what it is that's underlying. And if we as a community in creating this program can reduce the number of calls to law enforcement and get people the help that they need, I think that's a win-win. Now we can focus, as a police department, can focus on, I don't want to say more important things, but things that actually need law enforcement attention. You know what I mean? Where some of these really, they look on the surface like they need law enforcement, but ultimately, criminal justice system is not the right place for these people.
Right. So good. Yeah, it's not always easy. And again, like you alluded to it, do they want the services to begin with? Right. Are they deeper? Again, easy solution, take them away. Right. Just take them away, get them out of our hair. But yeah, where do they go and what does that look like? And
what does it solve?
Yeah. And we've never, I think back in the day, we didn't necessarily homeless. I know they say homeless. Today they're saying unhoused. I think back in the day when I was a kid, it was hobos, there's always been a segment of the population that either couldn't participate in society and make the money they needed to pay for all the bills we have in order to live within society. Right. Or they just choose not to, like they just don't want to participate.
Right. And there's a segment of the population that you're going to have that has no intention of, getting out of that situation. And we may be able to provide them still with resources. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still stuff out there that can help these individuals, but solving their overlying issues, this is just not going to happen. But the ones that we can reach and we can connect with those resources and get them, that hand up, that's what makes it all worthwhile to me.
Yeah.
Is again, getting those individuals where they can become productive members of society and get out of the cycle of, being getting law enforcement called on them. And then again, we're limited on what we can do. So maybe we cite them, maybe we give them a ride somewhere, but then they come back bridging that gap and getting them to the services that we have within this community that we can provide. I think that's the key. That's the ultimate, maybe not solution, but it's that step forward.
Yeah.
I think that we need in this community to help get us in that direction.
Yeah, I agree. And I appreciate the work you put into putting this together, bringing it to the forefront. Just throwing out that legacy. We're very fortunate to have legacy in the community and helping contribute to projects like this. My understanding is they're paying for how many years of?
Yeah. So we ODC reached out to them for a grant, and they're funding the first 3 years of the program. Thankfully, ultimately, well, when that 3 years is up, we're going to have to decide how to continue with the program. The co-responder is producing a report every month, so we know what she's doing, who she's connected with, not names specific, but numbers, statistics. Nothing private is shared in those reports. Just that she's connecting with people and the successes that she's having, and then ultimately we need to evaluate that when we come closer to the end of this 3 years and decide if that is something that we want to continue in the community. I'm going to bet that we do. Once it becomes established, and we started at the beginning of this year, and she's certainly ramping up and taking a lot more calls and participating in a lot more of these things. And, ultimately I believe that it's going to be an indispensable, program for the community. Now, how we fund that, risk is going to be something that we're going to talk about, whether it's partly through, the city, maybe we request some other grant funding or additional, grant funding. I don't know what the answer, is at this point. That's something, again, that we're going to have to get together and talk about. But ultimately, I think it's a huge step in the right direction for this community. And it is, it's something that other communities already have. There's some other communities in Wisconsin, not a lot, but there are some other communities in Wisconsin that have something very similar to what we have here. And there are other communities in other states that have the same or similar as well. But it's new. And, honestly, for me to be successful, you have to allow the community to dictate what her job is, because each community has different needs,
right,
that go along or that would require those services or the services of a co-responder. And by just trying to make it cookie cutter and just like someone else's co-responder program, I think you'll set yourself up for failure. So you have to listen to the community. You have to base what she does on the needs of the community, and not pigeonhole yourself.
No, I think what I've seen just in going on 2 years as mayor, like you said, we have a ton of resources. The county has great people. The city has great people. Different, there are different pathways in terms of how they reach out and help the community. But what we do have is there is the link in between all those services and getting them to that, and we're getting them to the services, the people that need it, and we're asking, and to some degree still are asking, police officers and paramedic firefighters to also take on that compassionate social worker position. And I don't think that's, to me, it's I'm not saying it's a recipe for burnout, but it definitely is a recipe for a lot of stress, like to be able to shift those roles so fast. And I think the amazing part is everybody's willing to do it. I just don't think it's the best scenario for any of these folks that are there to do a tough job, to protect our community and have to deal with some of the toughest situations that most people can't even imagine, as well as the paramedic firefighters, to keeping everybody safe. Correct. So I think that this is a huge role, and we're going to have to find the funding for it, because right now it doesn't seem that the social issues are going away.
Right. And they won't. And again, that just gives us, I like to say it's a missing piece of our puzzle, right? It gives us that piece so that we have more options and have the opportunity to take an individual who would normally spend years and years and in this cycle of whether it's substance abuse or homelessness or whatever, and get them the resources that get them to the resources that they otherwise wouldn't go reach out for themselves, or be able to find it.
Yeah.
So, and she just does a tremendous job of connecting people to the resources, and she's tenacious. She's come, and the individual you and I were just talking about earlier, it took several attempts before that individual accepted her help.
Yeah.
So, and you have to know that sometimes it's going to take several attempts before people accept it.
So speaking of tough jobs, when you do ask a police officer to also be part of that social fabric of relationships and dealing with the tough stuff and not being able to just, do their job and then go on to the next job, we have an ordinance officer that we voted into, existence a few years back. And again, he's doing a great job in what we're asking him to do. But it's a tough job in the sense of, you're asking people to get into people's lives and say, like, you have to do this because these are the rules. Right. And a big part of it typically is yards, whose yards are dirty and, how that plays out. And we've worked a lot together to try to figure out with the attorney, like what we can and can't do in order to make it, mainstreamed enough that we just know what path we have to go down in order to get to the end result, as uncomfortable as that is. Can you speak to this at all with with your department or that office?
Yeah, certainly. I think the biggest hurdle that our code enforcement officer has to deal with is a lot of people want instant results.
Yeah.
And, someone calls and complains that, trash in the neighbor's yard or whatever ordinance violation that you want to pick from. And they expect that he's going to go there and it's going to immediately be resolved. Well, I mean, there's a process to it. Obviously, if he came to your house and pointed out a violation to you, you're going to take care of it immediately, and we're never going to get a call back to Mayor Matt Zacker's house, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully. Right. I hope not. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
But there are individuals that, they don't respond as quickly or to those things. So my philosophy on this and the way we look at this is, we want compliance. That ultimately we want compliance. We want to, we'll avoid, just writing ticket after ticket after ticket, because that doesn't solve the issue. And then the neighbors still aren't happy. And why isn't this getting taken care of? Well, we've cited the, so the code enforcement officer, will go out, will advise the individual that there's been a complaint and that this, or if he sees it on his own, it could be a proactive enforcement of things as well. But inform them, hey, this is a violation of the city ordinance, and educate them on that. And again, there are going to be several people that, I didn't know it was a violation of city ordinance. I'll take care of it right away. Boom, it's done, right? Others aren't going to be that easy. So he will, or it's gotten to be such an issue that it's not going to be resolved in a day because they don't have the resources, they don't have time. They can't just get it done in a day. So I give him some time to resolve the situation, and before, and he'll come back out and check it out again. And if after a grace period or a warning period, then we'll talk about enforcement action, and, citations, things like that. But that's, that's another issue entirely as well, with that, navigating the municipal courts and things like that. So that also takes time. So, someone making a complaint, it's just not realistic to expect instant results all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes there will be, but there are other situations where it's going to take us longer to get that compliance, even with taking enforcement action. And we're working with with the city attorney and in trying to come up with ways of collecting the fines and things like that maybe put a little bit more urgency in correcting the situations. But even that takes time. You got to make sure that you're doing everything right in making changes, whether it's ordinances or tiered levels of fines or things like that. You want to be right. Yeah, you don't want to implement something like that and then find out that that you can't do it. So because that could be embarrassing. So,
well, I may step on some toes here in the community. No one specific, but these are things that I'm learning. Like, I'm a businessman, spent some time in the military. Again, I'm not a government man in the sense that, I've always wanted to be a mayor. Like, that was never in the cards. Sure. But during COVID and throughout my life experience, I have a healthy dose of conspiracy theoryism, I guess, in my head. And I'm always wondering, like, is there something bigger behind this? Or is it just, happenstance that this is how things kind of play out? And so in the last, 2 years as mayor and, 3 more years before that, being a part of the government, I got involved because I wanted to know. I didn't want to just, sit in my armchair complaining about everything. And,
right.
What I've learned so far is that for the most part, we're dealing with social issues, and when people come to me and say, You need to go into this business and you need to tell them that they need to do A, B, C, and D and run this the right way. Well, okay. Being a business owner, I've been on that receiving end of people who have to come in and tell me how I got to run my business.
Right.
And I appreciate that their aspect of it now much more so.
Right.
Granted, you have a few people out there that get power trips and they get, like, they're excited about being able to boss people around. For the most part, people don't want to do this. We don't really want to do this, though.
Right.
Like, this is something that aldermen somewhere along the way voted in and said, these are the standards for everybody's yards.
That's correct.
Now, granted, we don't want a junk city because then nobody's going to want to live in the city. But at the same time, people are different. And I guess I'll equate the yards to kind of like politics. Like 90% of the people are pretty, in the middle,
Right.
Rational. I say sane because, but, you can speak with them. Whereas you got 5% on one side, 5% on the other side, that you can't really talk to either one of them. Like they're just so far out there and so extreme on what their views are that it's not really worth the conversation.
Correct. Okay.
Well, you have the same for yards. You have the messy yards and you have the really immaculate yards. And then you have 90% in the middle that are just like, I'm just trying to keep up on cutting my grass every week in the middle of everything else. And I will say that, again, this is where I apologize in advance to people, but there's an issue on both sides typically when you have a super messy yard and when you have a super clean yard. Like we're dealing with like a mentality on both sides that they're tough to battle, like because they're more of the extreme. And the ones with the immaculate yards are looking for the yards that, don't meet that standard. Granted, it's a society and we have to run it as such. But my point in saying all this is it's not easy and it's all social issues. It's not just like there's good and there's bad and there's right and there's wrong. It's kind of messy and in the middle. And we're doing the best we can to kind of keep all the pieces together, keep everybody happy and taking care of the city as a whole to make sure we have a good place to live. So
absolutely.
I appreciate everything you guys do.
Well, thank you.
Seems like a good segue to end this. I appreciate all your time and meeting with me to get you and the department out to the community.
It's my pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the invite. And we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
thanks, Chief. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you soon.